Good evening, Blackwood Insomniacs. It's your local ghost storyteller here, Ally Clifford. If you're still awake, you're in the right place. Quick update, I went to the police to tell them about what I found at the main building. They scolded me for going there at night, which is fair. I asked Alex's doctor about it, and he confirmed that his head injury could have been caused by a pipe, so I don't feel completely crazy for thinking it might not have been an accident. He did reiterate that Alex could have fallen and hit his head on the way down, so I feel obligated to mention that too. From what I could see inside the building, I didn't spot any exposed pipes, but I couldn't say for certain. The police called to let me know they went to look for the pipe I told them about and couldn't find it. Coincidence? I don't think so.
I second that.
Starting to sound like a conspiracist who doesn't trust the government, but let's not go down that hole. Let's read all your wonderful comments. A lot of get well wishes for Alex. Thank you all so much. And it seems me and Harper have a few admirers. Thank you, but I have too much on my plate to think about dating right now. Harper, on the other hand, looks like she has some free time.
Are you prostituting me on the internet?
Maybe you'll meet your future husband. And for the comments on the old gaming console, some of you say you had classmates who found old gaming consoles in their dorm rooms and actually pawned them at the antique shop in town. Others say they had a roommate who played something sounding a lot like what was described, and then the roommate moved back home. Some of you think it was simply students who couldn't handle university life and snapped under the pressure. A lot of you are with Harper. You want to find the console and play it. And someone said something extra creepy. The commenter who said Blake Scott is also known as a ritual killing that really did happen in the 1930s. Sidebar, still very interested in learning more about this story. They commented and said, what if there's a cult in Blackwood or even Ravenbrooke and they curse the console to collect souls? That is an unsettling thought. Moving on, a lot of you say you would probably play if you found a console in your dorm. Thank you all for your comments and for engaging with the channel. This means so much to me, and I know it means a lot to Alex. This week's story is called The Last Bell. I pick a lot of these stories based on the name, so let's hear what it's about. The Last Bell. Blackwood University's drama department stages many plays throughout the year, but there is one that stands above all the rest. One that carries more weight, demands more sacrifice, and counts for a significant portion of the students' final grades. This last play of the year brings together every field of study under the theater's roof: performing arts, directing, sound design, costume, and prop making. It is the one assignment that forces students to understand that a play is never made by one person, that every light, every stitch, every carefully placed object on a stage is the work of many hands. Now, Blackwood's theater has a reputation. Strange sounds come from it at odd hours, footsteps crossing a stage that should be empty, doors closing in rooms no one has entered. Of course, people in the theater world carry their own superstitions, and the building is old enough to have settled into its own habits. But many believe what happens there goes beyond drafts and old timber. Many believe it started the night of what is simply known as the Last Bell. It began with an extraordinary actress. The year her class took on their final production, they chose a play that had never been attempted on the Blackwood stage before, a tragic Gothic romance, complete with a full orchestra, rain machines, and an ending so devastating that audiences reportedly sat in stunned silence for nearly a minute before the applause came. No one speaks the name of the play anymore. It is a quiet, collective agreement that play should never be performed again, and at the center of it all was the unnamed lead actress. Lecturers were astounded by what the students had built from the ground up, but more than the production itself, what struck them was her. She didn't perform the role so much as inhabit it. She stepped into the character the way you step into a room you've lived in your entire life, with total effortless belonging. Then, halfway through rehearsals, someone close to her died. The death shook many students, as it was one of their own. But for the lead actress, it was something that refused to settle quietly. The death had been self-inflicted, and she could not make peace with that, not only with the loss itself, but with the way it had happened. She told cast members quietly, almost to herself, she wouldn't have left me willingly. For a time, her focus fractured. Understandably. But even then, even distracted and grieving, her performances were above the rest. She was moving through something most people couldn't have named, and it was bleeding into her work in ways no one quite knew how to address. Then, a few weeks before opening night, something shifted. She came back. More than back, she arrived at rehearsals with a stillness and a focus that hadn't been there before. Her grief hadn't disappeared. It had gone somewhere deeper, somewhere she could use it. The crying scenes in the play were no longer theatrical. They were real, and the tears were real, and every night her co-stars had to fight to keep themselves composed while performing their own parts. She would seem to stay in the character of the heroine long after rehearsals ended, walking off stage, still wearing the role like a second skin. Opening night was a quiet thunderclap. Word spread through the school and into Ravenbrooke the way word only spreads about things that feel important, without announcements, without posters, just the weight of it passing from one person to the next. Even people who had never set foot in a theater before felt the pull. They performed the play every night for a week. In that week, the lead actress never broke character. She never stayed for the celebrations after each performance. No gathering with the cast, no drinks, no laughter. She simply disappeared when the curtain fell and appeared again the next day as though she had stepped out of the night air itself. By closing night, the theater was full to overflowing. Students, faculty, town residents, and alumni crowding in, standing along the walls, waiting to see the final performance. The ending of the play was already becoming infamous. In the last scene, the heroine, destroyed by grief after losing the person she loved most, walks alone onto a darkened stage, a single figure in the dark. She delivers her final monologue and then disappears into the fog as the curtains close slowly around her. The audience wept. Some said she cried real tears throughout the entire final scene. Others swore the theater grew cold during those last minutes, a cold that had nothing to do with the air conditioning, settling into the room like something had arrived to watch. But everyone agreed it was the best performance Blackwood University had ever seen. When it came time for the curtain call, the cast filed out onto the stage one by one. The audience rose to their feet. She wasn't there. It was their last night, their final bow, and she was gone. The cast and crew celebrated through the night, expecting her to appear at some point, telling themselves she'd walk through the door any minute. She never did. The next morning, campus security found her inside the old bell tower overlooking the theater courtyard. Hanging. The official report ruled it a suicide, grief, complicated and unresolved, doing what grief sometimes does when it is carried too long and too quietly. But what very few people knew at the time, what only came out in whispers afterward, was that the bell tower was where her friend had taken her own life as well. She had gone back to the same place, to the last place her friend had been. A memorial was held, the play was retired, and slowly, the way all painful things do, the story softened into legend. Years later, students attempted the play again. Accidents accumulated, small ones at first, then stranger ones. Performers lost their lines mid-scene, couldn't find their footing on a stage they had rehearsed on for weeks. And whenever the final scene came, whenever the stage darkened for the last monologue, the temperature dropped, not gradually. All at once, as though something had walked in through an invisible door, the students abandoned the production and started fresh with another play, which ran to the end without incident. But something else remained. Since the days of recording grew common, something has been appearing in the footage. It doesn't matter which play is being performed, or how many lights are on, or how full the house is. In the part of the stage that was darkened for the final scene of that forgotten play, in that same precise strip of dark, a silhouette appears. Cast members perform around it without seeing it. Audience members shift in their seats and squint, trying to make sense of the shape, but the camera sees all. The silhouette stands. It performs the last monologue, the words no one has spoken aloud in years. Then it turns and walks off the stage, into nothing. The rumors have never quite settled on a single explanation. Some say she couldn't live without her friend, that once the performance ended and the stage went dark, there was nothing left to hold her. Others say something older is at work, that the forgotten play was buried for a reason, and that the character never let her go. And then there are the students who keep the tradition alive, bringing new arrivals to the theater at midnight, standing them alone on the stage in the dark, and waiting. Every one of them hears it eventually. Faint applause rising from nowhere, filling the empty seats. And then a single set of footsteps crossing the stage, slow, deliberate, the sound of someone who has done this 1,000 times before and is not afraid. And then silence, as though the performer has reached the lip of the stage, looked out at the empty house, and taken her bow.
The girl next door is in drama. I'm going to ask her about this.
Well, I for one would genuinely love to see footage of that. A ghost on stage. Maybe Alex already got some when he did his research. I'll have to go through his files. So I'll leave the question with you, Blackwood Insomniacs. Do you think she ended it in grief for her friend, or was she consumed by the grief of the character? Because there's a difference, isn't there? One is a woman who lost someone she loved and couldn't find her way back. The other is something stranger and darker, a story that refused to let go of the person telling it. And I keep thinking about the friend. I can't imagine losing someone you love, and then being told or having to decide whether it was truly by choice. She said it herself. She wouldn't have left me willingly. What did she know that no one else did? That's enough from me, Blackwood Insomniacs. I hope you're all drifting off to dreamland by now. This is Ally. Good night, Alex.